music can only mean one thing. That's right. For the first time this season, all 15 ACC teams will take the field on the same day this Saturday. And that means we got a lot of games to cover here on Playbook. I am Chris Clark. Let's get this thing started, shall we? First and foremost, let's take a look at the rankings. The ACC now has 3 of the top 5 teams in the country. Let me say that again. 3 of the top 5. Clemson standing firm at number 1, followed by Notre Dame at number 4. North Carolina checking in at number 5. Now, Miami dropped to 13th after that loss to Clemson last week, and Virginia Tech barely managed to stay in the top 25 after a loss at Chapel Hill, a tough one. But they're there. And keep an eye on NC State and Boston College. Wolfpack and the Eagles could sneak into the rankings if they can win this weekend. Now, Clemson, they stopped a red-hot Miami team in their tracks last weekend, beating the Hurricanes 42-17. And as WSPA's Pete Yannity reports, that victory is putting 2 Tigers squarely in the Heisman conversation. Pete?
Of course, Clemson has a couple of dynamic players on offense, to say the least. Their quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, their running back, Travis Etienne. And in fact, coming off the performances those two have had, particularly in the game against Miami, well, there's a lot of social media chatter that maybe they are 1-2 in contending for the Heisman Trophy. The head coach was asked his thoughts on that in Tuesday's weekly news conference.
Who knows how all that stuff's going to go. Really not worried about it. I just like seeing them have fun and like seeing them play. I know this, there's not 2 better football players in the country than T squared.
Obviously, I can't sit here and say it wouldn't be awesome and really cool to win the award, but I just want to win. But Travis keeps playing like the way he's playing, he'll have a shot.
Now, the game against Georgia Tech is not only one of Clemson's longest rivals, but it means a whole lot to the head coach and his QB for nostalgic reasons. Sweeney is celebrating the 12th anniversary of being ascended to the head coaching role, and it was against Georgia Tech that he first patrolled the sidelines as Clemson's interim head coach in 2008. That ended up in a Clemson loss. And as for Lawrence, well, it was the 4th game of his freshman season 2 years ago in Atlanta, where in his hometown he proved that he deserved to become the Tigers starter with his effort in that Clemson victory against the Jackets, and subsequently was named to the top job, one he has held, of course, since that point. Covering the Clemson Tigers, I'm Pete Yannity.
Good stuff, Pete. Next up on the Tigers hit list, Georgia Tech, 12 o'clock kickoff in Atlanta Saturday. And as WJBF's Brennan Robertson reports, the Yellow Jackets are hoping to use some momentum to knock off number 1 team in the country.
Well, Georgia Tech gets its biggest test of the year so far when the top-ranked Clemson Tigers come to the Flats on Saturday. Yellow Jackets, though, riding high after their 46-27 win at home over Louisville. Jamar Gibbs quickly emerging as a star for head coach Jeff Collins. He ran for 61 yards and a touchdown, grabbed 60 yards and another touchdown through the air. Quarterback Jeff Sims directing the offense with no turnovers last weekend, and that will be key if the Yellow Jackets hope to have any shot against the Tigers. Collins knows his defense has a long way to go before they can contain arguably the most lethal offense in the country in Clemson.
Watching the tape, the biggest thing, the takeaway is creating turnovers, creating fumbles was a big part of our success, and then not turning the ball over was huge. We put up some good offensive numbers the first 4 games, but the games that we've won were plus in the turnover margin. The games that we have not won were minus in the turnover margin, so that was a big point of emphasis. We'll continue to be that way.
The Yellow Jackets, understandably, 27-point underdogs against the Tigers. It's a noon kickoff on the Flats. With a look at Georgia Tech, I'm Brennan Robertson.
Well, Notre Dame is up to number 4 in the rankings this week after returning to action with a 42-26 victory over Florida State. But they could face a little trickier test this coming Saturday. Let's bring in WTTV's Chris Whitlock now to take a closer look at the Irish. And Chris, that win last week came after some time off because of the COVID-19 outbreak. Did the Irish have any rust, or was it business as usual against the Noles, man?
No, they had some rust. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They had virtually 3 weeks off after their 52-0 pasting of South Florida to their game with Florida State. Because of that game with Wake Forest on the road that was postponed, too many positive tests for Notre Dame, and they were hoping to get that game rescheduled for the following week because both schools had an open date. That didn't happen. They put that game off to December. So there was a 3-week break there between the first 2 games of the Irish and this contest with Florida State. And after, trailing 17-14 after the first quarter, they got their motor running. And Brian Kelly said before the game, this is going to feel like a season restart, and that's exactly what it was. But once they got cruising after the first quarter, they were in pretty good shape there in South Bend.
Yeah, you look at the final and you'd never know about that rough start. But Notre Dame, they had almost twice as many yards on the ground as they did through the air last week. Now, that's not a stat that you see every day. Is that part of Coach Brian Kelly's plans here moving forward, or what?
It is. That was his plan, really, from the start of the season, because Notre Dame lost their best receivers to graduation and to the NFL, including Chase Claypool to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we've seen what he's been able to do on that next level. So all new receivers, very little chemistry with quarterback Ian Book. So it was all about getting that run game established. And they've got 4 really great running backs who could all be number 1 at almost any other school. You've got Kyron Williams, Chris Tyree, Sibo Flemister, and Jafar Armstrong. And there's really not enough footballs to give everybody an opportunity, but that's what Brian Kelly's trying to do. He wants to rotate all those guys in, keep them all fresh, keep them all healthy. So it's run first for Notre Dame, and Ian Book really has become kind of a game manager this year, but so far it's working pretty well.
That's a problem to have there, man. At 4 backs with not enough footballs to go around, that's for sure. Now, the Irish stay at home, and they get a visit from Louisville this week. The Cardinals are just 1-3 this season, but they were ranked early. I mean, how does Notre Dame avoid the upset on Saturday here?
Well, I think what helps the Irish defense especially is they just faced a dual-threat quarterback at Florida State. Louisville runs that same type of offense, and the Irish really took care of the Louisville Cardinals at the beginning of last season, so they know what kind of offense they run. They dominated them. I don't think they have much to worry about. Also, Notre Dame's looking ahead, too. They've yet to go on the road this year because of that Wake Forest postponement. So after this game at Notre Dame Stadium in South Bend, they've got 4 of their next 5 away from home. So they have to take care of business at home, and they shouldn't have major issues with Louisville. The Cardinals really allowing a lot of points. So I think Notre Dame is going to keep this game on the ground, a ball control offense, score a lot of points, which I think they'll be able to do, and take a perfect record into their first road trip the following week.
I want to say thank you, Chris, for the insight, keeping us up to date on everything. Enjoy the game, my friend.
All right, sounds good. Thanks a lot.
Game time in South Bend, 2:30 on Saturday, and as WEHT's Randall Parmley reports, Louisville is going to need to make some big changes. They want to pull off an upset. Randall?
Well, the Louisville Cardinals will have their hands full this weekend. The Cards hit the road, traveling to South Bend to take on Notre Dame. It is 2 teams going in complete opposite directions. The Cards are 0-3 in ACC play after losing to Georgia Tech last weekend. Notre Dame, meanwhile, is 3-0 and ranked 4th in the nation. Louisville head coach Scott Satterfield says, get this, he's not really worried about the Irish. He's worried about the Cardinals.
It's not about Notre Dame. You know, I think it's about us in this building and how well we can go out and prepare this week to play this game, and then go out and actually execute and play the game the way we were prepared. I think that's probably the biggest thing. You know, whatever the score ends up being in this game, whether we win or whether we lose or whatever the score is, to me, what's going to help make this season for us is that we coming out and we're playing the way we need to be playing. To me, and for our guys and our staff and our team, it's more about us and how we can go execute and just play at a much better level.
These 2 teams played last year. Notre Dame beat Louisville in September, 35-17. Covering the Louisville Cardinals, I'm Randall Parmley.
Thank you, Randall. And North Carolina broke into the top 5 this week, moving up from number 8 to number 5 after beating a ranked Virginia Tech team on Saturday. WNCN's Alyssa Ray is here with me live. And Alyssa, man, that was a big deal, that W.
Yeah, it was, Chris. And this is the highest this program's been ranked since 1997. That was the first stint that Mac Brown was coaching in Chapel Hill. The offense is a big reason why this team is getting so much love on the national level. We talk about their endless weapons all the time, but it was the run game that dominated in that win over the Hokies. The Heels had 656 yards of total offense, nearly 400 of that coming on the ground. Michael Carter and Javonte Williams rushed for more than 160 yards apiece, and each had 2 touchdowns.
They're so respectful of each other, and they have no jealousy at all. They're not selfish. If Michael runs it all the way down, Javonte takes it in for the touchdown. You know, you got some players in your past that would say, what are you doing, man? I'm the one that got it down here. And there's none of that with these two guys. And I think it's out of respect. And they're also quiet leaders on the team.
We spoke to Michael Carter after the game. He said he believes him and Javonte Williams are the best backs in the country. Sam Howell echoed those sentiments. And if they keep this up, they very well could be.
What do they say? If you can back it up, it ain't bragging. I think that's what it was. Offense-wise, this team gets it done. But defensively, man, giving up 45 points to Virginia Tech, they're just not quite there. Now, what do they need to do to catch up to the level of what the offense is doing?
The first thing, Chris, for some is to get healthy. The Heels were without 3 starters in that game against Virginia Tech, 2 DBs and a defensive lineman. The younger guys that stepped in got some quality game reps against a good team, so hopefully that experience will help clean up some mistakes on that side of the ball.
Well, they say next man up in the NFL. I guess it's the same way out there in Chapel Hill there, Alyssa. Thank you so much for joining us, and see you next week.
Thanks, Chris.
Definitely. And the Seminoles came out strong against Notre Dame last week, and they got into their game against the Tar Heels, still looking for their first conference win this year. WMBB's Emma Stamps is new and stepping up and covering Florida State for us. Emma.
The Florida State Seminoles still looking for a conference win headed into Saturday's matchup against North Carolina, a second straight top 5 opponent. After scoring 2 touchdowns in the first quarter of last week's game against Notre Dame, the Noles were outscored in the second and third quarters, falling to the Fighting Irish 42-26 on the road. However, they did show improvement in the game as Jordan Travis had his first start. He had 1 passing and 1 rushing touchdown and led the team in both categories on the day. He injured his hand, however, late in the game, but he is said to be ready to go as they welcome the undefeated Tar Heels into Doak Campbell Stadium. Noles head coach Mike Norvell said this is a great opportunity for his team.
For us, we need to improve individually. We need to improve collectively as units on both sides of the ball and in special teams, and then show that improvement overall as a team. And so to get to do it against some of the top teams in the country, I mean, it's it definitely adds a sense of urgency in all aspects of what we need to do, because if we do not go out there and apply the lessons that have been learned, we're going to find ourselves in a very challenging situation.
We'll see if the offensive improvements will pay off and if the defense can stop explosive plays for the Noles to pick up another home win on Saturday. Reporting on Florida State, I'm Emma Stamps.
Thank you, Emma. This game is going to be the first time Florida State has hosted a conference opponent since the opening week of the season. Kickoff in Tallahassee is coming at you in prime time at 7:30 on Saturday. And no way to say it, well, no other way to say it, rather. It was a rough outing last week for the Miami Hurricanes. I mean, they were on a 3-game roll, playing some good football. And then they ran into Clemson, who's playing some great football. And the result was a 42-17 loss that brought the Canes back down to earth with a little reality check. No time to feel sorry for themselves. No. This week, they're at home against a Pitt team that, if it weren't for 2 plays, would be undefeated right now. Unfortunately for the Canes, Pitt Panthers, well, they played the exact same type of defense setup that Clemson used last week. The Panthers will put as many players up near the line of scrimmage as possible, stacking the box, stopping the run, and then playing press man coverage on the outside and down the field. No time to be arrogant here for the Canes. It's gut check time. It's time to see how they can come back from a loss like the one they just suffered.
We can't just think we're Miami and we are more talented than, let's say, Pitt or whoever, because we've been saying that for many years. And just when I say, to maybe this way I answer your question, our players have been hearing that for many years, regardless of who the head coach is, and it's not been serving them well. So what we talk about is that we have to have respect for who we're playing. We have to understand that our chance of victory comes through our level of preparation, our level of work, and our level of staying together and believing in the team.
And if there was a snake bite award or a hard luck award, whatever you want to call it, it would go to the Pitt Panthers for sure, early in the season anyway. In back-to-back weeks, they've lost to NC State and Boston College by 1 point in each game. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and if that's the case, the Panthers are approaching Superman status coming into this week as they prep for Miami. Think about it. How many small things, how close, how many tiny little plays for just 1 point? I digress. Even though they are inches away from being undefeated, they need to be better on the back end and eliminate the big plays. I mean, it killed them against NC State last week against Boston College as well. Panther players have great attitudes, but 2 back-to-back losses by 1 point, that might take a toll mentally.
We got a pretty resilient football team. we're never going to lose our kids during the season. You know, it's because of the way we treat them. You know, every day, you know, consistently, win or loss, we're going to, you know, kind of take care of guys. You know, we're not going to go, you know, we can't get a guy hurt and then go on the free agency and pick up another corner. We just can't do it. It doesn't happen. So we got great kids. They're fun to coach every day, and that's why it's fun. If I had to worry about not only coaching and getting us lined up and prepared to play a football game, but if I had to worry about our, you know, mentality, then we'd have a different deal. But, you know, I don't worry about the emotions at all.
What do you say? I guess you could go through free agency and get another player, but the NCAA might want to talk to you about that, Coach. This is going to be Pitt's second straight on the road after opening the season with 4 straight home games. Kickoff is at Miami is at noon. Meanwhile, the Hokies gave their traveling fans a show last week, putting up 45 points in Chapel Hill, but it wasn't quite enough to top the Tar Heels. WFXR's Jermaine Farrell covering Virginia Tech, who returns home to Blacksburg looking to bounce back. Jermaine?
Well, last Saturday, the 19th-ranked Virginia Tech Hokies football team looking for a sweep of the North Carolina Triangle after getting a home win against NC State and a road win against Duke. The challenge will be tough as they travel to Chapel Hill to play the 8th-ranked North Carolina Tar Heels. Both teams entered the game with perfect 2-0 overall and ACC records, and Tech quarterback Hendon Hooker accounted for 3 touchdowns, but it wasn't enough. Says Tech fell 56-45 to North Carolina. Tech falls to 2-1 overall on the season and 2-1 in the ACC. The loss ended a 4-game winning streak for the Hokies over the Tar Heels. North Carolina sprinted out to a 21-0 first quarter lead. The Hokies played while both their starting safeties for undisclosed reasons, and overall they were down 15 players. Tech closed the gap in the second quarter to 21-14, but UNC went on a stretch, outscoring the Hokies 21-3 to go up 42-17 in the third. But Tech made a game of it, scoring touchdowns on 3 consecutive possessions. The Hokies cut the lead to 42-37 on a 33-yard TD pass from quarterback Hendon Hooker to receiver Tavion Robinson with 15 seconds left in the third. Tech went for 2 to create a 1-possession game, but Hooker's pass to James Mitchell was broken up, leaving the Hokies down 5. That was as close as the Hokies would get as the Heels outlasted the Hokies 56-45.
Just want to reiterate how proud I am of our guys and how they battled under incredibly adverse situations. Some guys were put in really tough spots, young players playing out of position with very little work, and I'm just really proud of the way the guys battled and came back on 2 separate occasions to close the thing there in the second half. So I'm not into moral victories, but I am proud of the way our guys have battled through some tough spots. Now we've got plenty of work ahead of us. We turn our attention to Boston College, who's 3-1 and playing really well. You know, Coach Hafley's done a fantastic job in a very short time there. They're throwing the ball all over the place with 10,000 shifts and motions, and got some, you know, the Flowers kid is explosive and fast, and the big tight ends catching balls. Defensively playing a lot of man coverage, really sound in their schemes. Have held some really good offenses to well below their average. So, you know, going to be a tremendous challenge for us as we get ready to go this week.
Now, after the loss to the Tar Heels, Tech dropped to number 23 in the AP rankings. Looking ahead to Saturday's game, it'll be the 29th meeting between the Virginia Tech Hokies and the Boston College Eagles, with the Hokies leading the series 18-10. BC, they've won the last 2 meetings. Tech looking to nip that streak in the bud. Following the Virginia Tech Hokies, I'm Jermaine Farrell.
That's what I'm talking about, Jermaine. Get excited there, brother. Anyway, moving on there. After falling short to North Carolina, the Boston College Eagles got back on the winning track, beating Pitt by 1 point last weekend. This week, they get to face Virginia Tech, as Jermaine just pointed out. Now, the last 2 weeks, the Eagles had to deal with a pair of the best passing attacks in the league. This week, the question is, can they stop a team with one of the best ground games going? Not just the backs, but the quarterbacks are all mobile as well, depending on who Tech will play, which is another problem. Tech can and will play any of them, and they're all effective. Question is, can the Eagles pivot from grounding the passing attacks to stopping the run game?
Our defense, the number one thing we talk about every week is stopping the run, because if we can't stop the run, we have no chance. So we'll continue to do so. You know, and it is, I think it's one of the best rushing attacks in college football. I mean, 300 yards a game. I mean, That's crazy, you know. So we gotta prepare and strap our shoulder pads on a little bit tighter and go to work.
Boston College and Virginia Tech are the closers in ACC action this week. They'll kick off in Blacksburg Saturday night at 8 p.m. Should be a good one. And it took 4 tries and quite a few erasures at the drawing board, but the Blue Devils finally broke through and put a check in the win column last Saturday on the road against Syracuse. Coach Cutcliffe always said they were just a little bit off and they needed to get all 3 phases of the game playing well at the same time, and they did. Duke took the lead in the first quarter in the Carrier Dome, never looked back, leading the game wire to wire. And with a win under their belts, the question is, how will this help the Blue Devils moving forward? Will they lighten up now and if they have a win and not be as hungry, or will it give them a taste and show their hard work is paying off?
Well, it should help us a great deal. What I'm anxious to see as we move each day back to practice is, does it make practice better? We'll have the same format that we've had the last couple of weeks. We've kind of altered some of the practice. I'm anxious to see if we finish better.
The Blue Devils did finish strong with a late score to put the game away, but what they did really well was run the football last weekend, man. Deion Jackson led the way with 169 yards rushing. His teammate Mateo Durant piled on 163 and added 2 touchdowns. It went a long way in adding some stability to an offense that was not clicking on all cylinders this year. But in the Dome, the Blue Devils found it, and at just the right time.
I think as an offense, we've just been clicking more, and we're building that team chemistry. You know, we didn't have much over off season to really work out together as a full team because of COVID. But I feel like as we've played, we've gotten better and better every quarter, and now it's just about sustaining and being consistent as an offense overall.
And just like when Duke had to open the season against top-ranked Notre Dame, they picked a rough time to try and start a winning streak. For next up is NC State, man, and the Pack are rolling. I mean, the close call to Pitt energized the Pack and led them to, put up 38 on Virginia last week. Devin Leary threw for a pair of scores, 184 yards. Zonovan Knight rushed for over 100 yards, 2 scores. When asked what the Blue Devils needed to focus in on, Coach Cutcliffe basically said everything.
What we have to do defensively is we got to be complete. You have to try to stop the run. And everybody in football says it. It's much easier to say it than it is to do it. But we've got to do a tremendous job of being in gaps. We've got to do a tremendous job of trying to whip blocks. And you got to stop run game before it really gets started.
Saturday will mark Duke's first trip to Carter Finley Stadium since October 10, 2009, when the Blue Devils defeated NC State 49-29 behind a record-setting performance from quarterback Thaddeus Lewis, being pointed at by the staff here. In the win, Lewis completed 40 of 50 passes for 459 yards with 6 total touchdowns, 5 of them through the air to outduel Wolfpack quarterback Russell Wilson. You all remember him. Also, Victor Dimukeje is closing in on a record. He is 3 career sacks away from eclipsing Charles Bowser's all-time school mark of 22 sacks. We'll see if he can close in on even more of that record when Duke and NC State kick off in Raleigh. That is set for 3:30. Wallace Wade Stadium, where Duke plays, and Carter Finley Stadium, where the Wolfpack call home, are about 20 miles apart. So WNCN's Todd Gibson caught up with the Wolfpack to see if they'd like to get back to playing that rivalry every year and put an end to the big gaps between meetings.
It's a rivalry that dates all the way back to 1924, and for the next 79 years straight, save for 1 year, 1944, during World War II, Duke and NC State met on the gridiron. But with ACC expansion in 2003, the yearly series came to an end. On Saturday, Duke and NC State will meet for the first time in 7 years. NC State says that's too long of a wait.
You should play every team. I mean, it'd be great if you could play home and away against every team. Particularly when you're talking about a team in the triangle. I mean, it's pretty crazy to think that you could come to NC State and never play Duke your entire career, and that's happened for multiple players. So I'm excited that we get to play them and look forward to being a part of a game that goes so far back. And I don't know if they'll ever change our scheduling model, but I would definitely be somebody pounding on the table for them to do that.
Yeah, I was actually familiar with that, but yeah, sure, why not? Like you said, they're right down the road, so it's a little the triangle rivalry, But I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I'm a freshman, I'm new to it, so I'm just really taking it all in, embracing it, and ready to come to compete.
Yeah, I think we should, just because simply how close we are with each other.
it'll be good for the North Carolina. I'm really not sure how they do the scheduling. I wouldn't say it's weird. I mean, it's kind of funny that down the street we only play them once every 7 years, but I wouldn't mind playing Duke every year.
Duke leads the all-time series, 41 wins, 36 losses. There have been 5 ties. The Devils have won the last 2 contests. Kickoff here at Carter Finley Stadium on Saturday is set for 3:30. Following the Wolfpack in Raleigh, I'm Todd Gibson.
Good stuff, Todd. After starting their season with a win, Virginia is now looking to end a 2-game losing streak, but they'll have to do it away from home. WRIC's Natalie Calabit is covering the Cavs. Natalie?
The Virginia Cavaliers took a step back last week against NC State. They'll try and get back to 500 on Saturday at Wake Forest. Head coach Bronco Mendenhall didn't sugarcoat the 38-21 loss to the Wolfpack.
Lots of mistakes really in every area. We didn't play well enough to win the football game. And so lots to work on, lots to refocus on, and on to the next ACC opponent.
Virginia's quarterback situation is up in the air. Starter Brennan Armstrong suffered a concussion on Saturday.
He'll have to work through the protocols this week. From my understanding, it is his first, and so it's possible that he could return and be ready for this week. So it's really day by day.
That could mean a larger role for Wayne Talapapa and Shane Simpson in the run game.
We could definitely be a thunder and lightning type of combination, just because his running style is more power and mine's more like finesse and speed. I think we complement each other really well.
The Cavaliers and Demon Deacons kick off at 4 o'clock. Covering Virginia, I'm Natalie Calabat.
Thank you, Natalie. And Wake Forest is still looking for their first win in conference, but they're hoping a week off and some momentum from a dominant win over Campbell will help them out on Saturday against Virginia.
Wake Forest is back on the field this week against Virginia. Here we are in the middle of October, and Wake Forest has played a total of 3 games. Normally, they'd be 6 or 7 games deep into the schedule by now. It's all a part of managing the COVID-19 crisis. Players are tired of practice, which head coach Dave Clawson hopes makes them appreciate playing in the games more, which will translate into a more consistent effort on game days.
You can improve it quite a bit, especially when you're reflecting on how you played in those first 3 games. You think about a lot of guys who maybe don't have the experience that they need to have going into ACC play, but we were able to get those 3 games under our belt, and then you kind of just figure out what needs to be done for these upcoming 8 games.
The bye week, we really just focus on things that we need to get better at. And especially on defense, is getting the line and communication and developing younger guys and just playing to the ability we can, because we've shown a lot of spurts of a great defense that we have, and we really had to focus on putting it all together and being able to play 4-quarter games.
But practice reps, especially in the positions that were younger, are really important. And I think more than anything, it's the process of building depth on our offensive line. You know, not only do we have 9 new starters on offense, but then you have 9 new backups. And those guys are a play away from having to go in. So in the bye week, we really focused on getting our 2s and 3s extra work.
All right, Virginia is a tough team to figure out. There is a lot of experience with plenty of juniors and seniors on the 2 deep. Wake Forest, on the other hand, plays a lot of freshmen and sophomores. The Deacons really believe this game and the one next week against Virginia Tech will go a long way in determining just how this season will play out. Beat the Cavs and the Hokies, and the Deacons might be on to something. Covering the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, I'm Kevin Conley.
Great stuff, Kevin. Thank you. And it's a mid-afternoon kickoff in Winston-Salem this week. Game time for Virginia at Wake Forest coming up at 4 o'clock. Syracuse is the one ACC team playing a non-conference opponent this week. But as WSYR Steve Infanti reports, the Orange are still going into the game as underdogs. Steve.
Well, in a normal year, with an FBS newcomer like Liberty falling the week before a showdown with Clemson on the schedule, Syracuse would treat a game like this as a tune-up for the Tigers. But as we are reminded of on pretty much a daily basis, in 2020, there is no such thing as normal. Forget about an easy tune-up. SU is actually considered the underdog heading into this game. Now, some of that has to do with all the injuries the Orange is dealing with, headlined by the loss of quarterback Tommy DeVito. But part of that 3-point spread has to do with the opponent. Liberty is off to a 4-0 start. The Flames are averaging better than 33 points per game. They'll be taking on a Cuse defense that gave up 645 yards to Duke last weekend. Dino Babers is especially concerned about Liberty's skill position players, led by Auburn transfer Malik Willis at the quarterback position.
Very, very talented athlete, strong arm, very explosive legs. They use him in the run game. He's a guy that can take off on scrambles, and he could house call it on those type of things. They have a tailback that's really good, runs behind his pads extremely well, and then they have an explosive receiver. So between those three individuals on offense, they're extremely explosive.
Liberty is actually receiving votes in this week's coaches poll. It'll be a noon kick on Saturday inside the Dome. Covering Syracuse, I'm Stephen Fonte.
Thank you, Steve. You heard him. Liberty 4-0 this season. What? The Flames? Yes, they are for real. But Syracuse will be hoping to use some of that orange home field advantage, even without a full Carrier Dome. Liberty hasn't played on the road since their first game of the season. Kickoff at the Carrier Dome Saturday at noon. I want to say thanks for joining us for Playbook. Remember, you can catch a new episode every Thursday night at 7. And until next week, get out there and watch some football, everybody. We'll see you next Thursday.